I informed him he was gonna be the keynote speaker, knowing that was a bad idea. Well,
Surprise, surprise.
surprise,
You
surprise.
wanted a surprise.
I wanted a surprise, and he's like, I'm not gonna tell you. I'm like, that's fine. Then yesterday I said, you know, this is an herbal conference, if we could have a mention of an herb, and he went, yeah, it's in there, okay, good. But what he does is makes you think differently. And I think that's what all the presenters here, that's all I ask anyone to do is be open to thinking a little differently. Because I think that's what's going to make the world a better place. Nobody here is a sheep. We don't like being led, we don't like being told how to think or what to do. And after this, I'm sure it will be even less so.
Well, thank you. Thank you. We love coming here. We traveled up from Alabama, 10.5 hours during actually on this PowerPoint. Deborah spent about 2.5 hours on the PowerPoint, plugging the slides in and doing things. I don't know if we're procrastinators or just people who overdo things and constantly have, are burdened a lot of times at late at night. So we're driving, she's working for 2 hours and 30 minutes, and all of a sudden I hear, oh no. Now, she's not very reactive. Now, if she's mad, I don't even talk about it. But if she's sad, if she's disappointed, I mean, my goodness, you have to really always just bang it out of her. So she says, oh no. I'm like, what happened? She said, I think I just lost everything. So we were using this online version of Microsoft Office, which is what we paid for. And it didn't say, we just lost everything. So she spent another 3 hours. Actually, when we go to bed this morning? 3?
Around there.
3 o'clock. So as you see these pretty slides, she's responsible for it, not me. So there you go. I can't do a PowerPoint. Now, I was intentionally vague about this entire thing because I'm sort of going to tell a story of sorts, but the main focus is why is our world so sick? Now, things like heart disease, COVID-19, and other things, we know why we have a mortality rate. We know what they are, basically. We know why they exist. But why in the past like 30 or 40 years, people were dying of dysentery, diarrhea, they were dying of heart disease, they were dying of this or that. Why about 30, 40 years ago did we start having our health of our entire country just absolutely, and our entire globe, just start falling apart? How many people heard about celiac disease after, 20 years ago? Diverticulitis, IBS, Crohn's disease, all these different things. Where did they come from? Did they just happen? Do the Amish deal with all these issues? They do if they get their stuff at Dollar General. We hang out with the Amish a lot of times, and those that know the Amish know they're just as likely to go to Dollar General or Walmart to pick up some of their supplies. So when you eat your jam, make sure where they're getting their sugar and whatnot. But the fact is, we live in a sick area, and we live in a sick world. So why is our world so sick? Anybody want to give like an idea? Just mention something, maybe something that other people don't think about that's causing our world to be as sick as it is.
Malnutrition.
Yes. Well, malnutrition is interesting because that's a legitimate worldwide reason and a legitimate reason for there to be sickness and death. Malnutrition has caused death since the beginning of time. You didn't eat, you died. What's something else?
Overpopulation.
Too many kids. Hey, actually, you know what? Part of what we're going to talk about is how effective they're going to be dealing with those issues, such as overpopulation. There's a lot of people on the earth. A lot of people are making excrement. A lot of people are making waste. A lot of people are producing a lot of emissions. A lot of people are causing pollution. What else?
A lot of people do not have community.
That's true, just in general. Yeah, everyone is becoming heartless, desensitized, disillusioned with relationships, society as a whole.
Getting away from eating real food.
Amen. They don't eat real food. Malnutrition, but it's not malnutrition as we think. I think about, we have 2 months of MREs on hand at all times, right? In our home. I have 2 months and I rotate them. I've got the born-on dates, I've got the inspection dates. My goodness, we can live for 2 months. But how do you think our health would be if my family lived for 2 months on nothing but MREs? Poor. or at best. We'd be out trying to, kill what we can kill, eat what we could eat, scrape what we could scrape, do what we could do with real food. Yeah, the MREs just in case you can't gather the real food. So we're trying to actually look at their organic companies that are starting to produce MREs. It's not what we give a credit. What did Joe Biden say? This is not political, because surely to the goodness we can talk about what our president says and it not be political, right? So let's just nobody make any groans or noises or happy or applause. Let's just listen to what Joe Biden said about what he was going to do about cancer. Anybody remember what Joe Biden said he was going to do about cancer? Back before the election, he said something about cancer moonshine. Anybody remember this? Gosh, nobody listen. Nobody listen to the president. He said, a lot of people say that he was going to get rid of cancer. He's just going to cure cancer, right? It's actually not what he said. He didn't say that. He's smarter than that.
It's cancer. Goal is to cut the cancer death rate in half in the next 25 years, at least by 50%.
Okay. Goal is that they want to cut the cancer deaths by 50% in the next 25 years, right? How on earth can they do that? I propose they can. I think they can. Actually, I know they can. I know they can cut cancer in half in the next 25 years. I think they can actually do it in 5. I think old Joe is dead on. I think that is, I don't know what to say that. That is something that he said that I believe is true. And the reason I believe that is because there, in 1974, do you know how many people died in the United States of cancer? 310,000 people died in the United States of cancer. 1974. That was the year before I was born. Unfortunately, when I was born, a lot of other bad things were born. I mean, literally, when I was conceived, undoubtedly just hell opened up on earth and just tried to swallow it. But what happened was, for one thing, this is off the topic. What happened to our IQ in the United States since 1975? Since I was born, since I entered this world, what happened to the IQ of this nation? It's decreased by 7%. What's happened since 1986 in China to their IQ? It's gone up 6%. I wasn't born in China. That makes me feel terrible. But there's a whole other factor. It's not just me. I didn't cause the world to go stupid, and I didn't cause the world to double in cancer. How many people died in 2020 of cancer? 620,000 people. What did Joe Biden say that he wanted to do? He wanted to cut cancer in half, and that's what he promised. And that's what I believe he can do. Because since 1974, we've doubled cancer. Now, don't we have better nutrition? No? But shouldn't we? Don't we have water-based hospitals? Don't we have incubators and vaccines and all kinds of things that keep humans alive better than it did in preventing cancer? Don't we have better stuff? Does it seem like it because people are dying? They're up and dying. We have these normal things that people die of. Normal illnesses, you have heart disease, you have stroke, heart attack, low respiratory infection, neonatal conditions, lung cancers, low respiratory pneumonia, Alzheimer's disease, dementia, diarrhea, diabetes. Would it be weird if there's one thing happening in the world that's causing, or at least contributing to or exacerbating every single thing you're reading out here? What if there's one single thing? Maybe not just one thing, but a few things, a host of things. Now, why are we seeing an increase? Gastric issues, obesity, thyroid issues. Where was thyroid disease other than goiter and some people who did have an iodine out west and in the what they call the coal belt, the Rust Belt? Yeah, that's what we're in, right? The Rust Belt?
The goiter belt.
The goiter belt. That's here, right?
That's right, we're in the center.
I mean, we're sitting here, this was actually black here. Yet it was, in Seattle, they were saying that the problem was they didn't have enough iodine, they didn't have enough salt, they didn't have enough iodine for soil. Weird, because Michigan has a lot more fertile soil than, they do in Iowa, or they do in Seattle, so what's that? What about thyroid disease, heart disease, cancer, learning disability, birth defects, Parkinson's? Where was ADD, and where was, how many kids did you hear about being autistic 50 years ago?
Yeah, he's called mute.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Deaf, mute, blind, they kind of lumped it all in the same thing, sent them off to a deaf and blind school. A lot of times that's what, that's, and out in Alabama, at least that's what they did. Gastric issues, kidney disease, autoimmune disorders, but what about the incidents? Now, what's interesting here is that this chart talks about, 1963, 1983, 87. These charts are all showing something. They're showing very simultaneous growth all the way to the 2000s of something. Something's going on. I wonder what that is. Anybody have an idea?
Environmental toxins.
Thank you. First, that's not helping anything. What's the link? It's not natural. It's really it.
Oh, no.
So
no.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Anybody ever heard of Anniston, Alabama? You get bored of typing Monsanto in Anniston if you're Google.
We've had this discussion.
Anniston, Alabama, Monsanto. Anniston, Alabama literally sits right beside Oxford, Alabama. It's the town where no one wants to live in. No one wants to say they're from Anniston. They're annexing Anniston, is dwindling, and Oxford keeps picking up more Anniston. Happens to be the nice neighborhoods for some reason. So there's a reason no one wants to be from Anniston, Alabama. For one thing, there's a chemical weapons incinerator that was located there at the Anniston Army Depot. Another thing, they also happen to have the only, for a long time, and then the second chemical weapons training facility at Fort McClellan, Alabama. And since they were going to go ahead and make the place a toxic waste dump, Monsanto figured they'd open up a shop and produce PCBs. And dumped so many PCBs that it was actually the location of the worst dumping of PCBs ever recorded in history, and Monsanto actually lost the lawsuit. Actually lost the thing. Now, Monsanto, what do we have to thank Monsanto for? Well, these beautiful creations such as saccharin, that's a nice thing. How about PCBs? Sitting at the bottom of every lake, every river in the South, and still, they even in Mississippi.
And Michigan.
Tons. Every General Electric plant, I passed some huge General Electric plant on the way here, and I could just feel it. What about polystyrene? What about styrofoam? You should hear my mom pronounce styrofoam. I love it. Styrofoam is toxic, and yet, they can produce for it. What about Agent Orange? Yeah,
They
that
sprayed
was
it in Michigan for us, the state did.
Alabama, Camp Cyber. You can Google Camp Cyber, Agent Orange, the military, et cetera, et cetera. What was Agent Orange originally designed to be? What did they originally design Agent Orange to be? Yeah, it's going to be an herbicide, pesticide. It's going to be something you spray on your plants. And it also produces DDT. Just DDT, which is not even legal to use in the United States, but it still produces it. Here's a little timeline. It keeps going. They also hydraulic fluid for the Navy because it was causing liver damage. They made Roundup in they didn't actually make Roundup in 1976. They actually started making Roundup in 1974. But they started producing it in large numbers, started using it in high numbers in 1976. It was already being used in 74. They went ahead and paid millions, they're still paying, to Vietnam War veterans because of the Agent Orange. And then they take fifth in the EPA's toxic release inventory. And I'm sure the EPA is all kind of about protecting our health and our safety. What's interesting is the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has just taken the EPA back to court. Anybody hear about that? No, nobody heard about it. But they're literally taking the EPA back to court because it seems that the EPA lied and covered up and did some bad things when looking at studies about something.
What's number one? You have
Number one.
Monsanto is fifth.
I don't know that. Can you imagine?
Dow.
It's probably either Dow or 3M. I'm not sure. I need to look that up. And then now, in 1996, what did they do? They made special crops. GMO. People confused about what is GMO, what is not GMO. Roundup ready crops mean that they're ready for the round. They're ready to go. They absorb. They work better. The first genetically engineered insect insect-resistant cotton, which produces its own insecticide. The seeds, this is cotton they can grow that has its own pesticides in the seed that sprouts out in the plant. You know, if you're 3 miles, if your garden is 3 miles from a garden or a crop that uses glyphosate, you will still have glyphosate in your garden. Just from your. Today, you go to scientists accuse Monsanto of robbing attempts in obtaining approval of the drug, or bovine growth hormone in Canada. They got caught trying to bribe Canadian officials. I'm sure they never bribed any American officials. They're fined $1.5 million for bribing Indonesian officials, since they weren't bribing the American officials. To skip an environmental assessment of its genetically engineered cotton, for clothes. You cannot imagine how much glyphosate is on your clothing. It's cotton clothing unless it's organic. And you can actually buy organic clothing. They paid $700 million to 20,000 people in Anniston, Alabama, for the widespread health problems from PCB contamination. I never realized when we first opened in Oxford, Alabama, what was going on, until we started seeing so much thyroid disease, so much cancer. People would talk about, they would play in the local creeks, and they'd be different colors. And so when they were kids, they thought it was exciting. They'd be pink, and they'd be green, and they'd be orange. Different times of the day, all their friends are dead. This lady was telling me about it, played in Snow Creek, has had 5 types of cancer. All her friends are dead. It was on down from Lee Brass, which is on down from Monsanto. What happened to them? So all these lawsuits were filed, right? And about Roundup, about it causing cancer. But in 2016, Bayer, the drug boys, the German company Bayer, decided that it was going to purchase Monsanto at $60 billion. Our government helped facilitate that deal happen. In 2018, that decision was finalized, and after that, the Roundup lawsuit decided in favor of claiming. Faced with the possibility of extensive legal liability, Bayer sought to stay declined that year. Monsanto was folded into Bayer's crop science division in 2020. They agreed to pay more than $10 billion to settle claims regarding Roundup. Did anybody here know that before you came here? Did you know that there's a bank account with $10 billion just ready for, you know, when you go online and you're scrolling Facebook, it's like, are you dying from Roundup? Did your family member die from Roundup? And you're like, oh, it's, the ambulance chasers are chasing Monsanto again. They're chasing them because there's $10 billion sitting there to pick from. But would that be there if there were something awful going on regarding the whole thing? About 280 million pounds of glyphosate are applied to an average of 298 million acres of cropland annually. In 1974, look at 1992, I'm sorry, that's not the chart yet. In 1974, glyphosate was first registered for use in the United States. It's one of the most widely used herbicides in the U.S., and people apply it on lawns, gardens, to their plants. I think, you know what happened? I know a person in Boaz, Alabama, matter of fact, we talked about Boaz, who drank a 5-ounce glass of Roundup to prove to their relatives that it was safe. There are people so hard-headed about this. Well, I mean, think about how many of you, when you heard, oh, it's on glyphosate. Goodness, what we're going to hear about. Drank it. 2 years later, they were dead. I mean, it's scary the level that people are apathetic toward things that they know. I mean, who on earth would trust Monsanto? Does anyone trust Monsanto here? You trust Monsanto?
Yes.
Okay, good. That's awesome. Because we have to look at the past, we have to look at history. And when I look at people that I trust, I look at what they've done. You know, my wife, she has an excellent reputation with me for being amazing. So therefore, I trust her. Now, if my wife were a mass murderer and serial killer, constantly abusing me and my family, I don't know that I would trust her. So, in 1992, here's the amount of glyphosate used. Right? In 2011, look at what we have. Look at the influx. Look up here in Michigan. Look at the Mississippi. You ever heard about the dead zone? You know about the dead zone? It's the huge area of Mississippi and Louisiana where nothing lives and everything's dead. Why is there not life? 80%, you guys might have heard about this. They actually leaked this out. because I feel like there's a reason for it. But they're actually telling people that, hey, by the way, almost the entire country and everyone in this room has glyphosate in their system. Almost every person, 80% of this room, you have glyphosate in your system. Now, what does that glyphosate do? Is it helping you or is it hurting you? Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? So we have Roundup. Of course, Roundup has a few more ingredients other than just glyphosate. The problem is sometimes they study just glyphosate and not the entire Roundup. Outlawed in most countries because of the poor health outcomes caused by cancer. Somehow the government allows Monsanto makes glyphosate, and then Bayer bought it, Roundup used proliferated here since then. And here we go. So why are we using this? Why are people using this? It's easy and it's available. They're planning on it being gone. They're not putting it on the shelves in 2023, supposedly. Roundup said that they're going to remove from the shelves at Walmart. Not the shelves in the back warehouse of the facility that's producing, spraying so. They're going to continue to use it in agriculture until it's banned. Well, what's going on with the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals? What are they taking the EPA back to court about? It's glyphosate. That's why it's going back to court. 75% of air and rain samples contain Monsanto's Roundup. So now it's almost like, how are we going to get away from this? How do you get away from something that literally is raining into our ponds, in our lakes? Well, the first way we get rid of it is to quit using it. Urine glyphosate levels detected in 99% of the French population, with higher age and younger people and farmers. The most unhealthy humans on this earth right now are non-organic farmers and their families. How sad is it that what should be the most healthy, the most valuable, and one of the most culturally acceptable forms of providing for your family and being a farmer, that now is pretty much a guarantee that if you're going to be a farmer in the United States and you're going to do government subsidies and work with our country, you're going to be sick and your family's going to be dying. We drive through fields, and one of the things that got us engaged in this whole study was that we have an administrator of our kids' school who we work with very closely. We teach our kids' school, and we're very close to this person. We've been dealing with their health issues for quite a while. We deal with their rheumatoid arthritis, their digestive problems, their autoimmune disorders, other than rheumatoid arthritis. What else? What else is she doing?
Just
Multiple things.
inflammation.
So we also drive by our house all the time. We're driving by our house and we look over to the left. And behind her, she lives in kind of a soup bowl. Her entire family, the aunts, the cousins, the nephews, everybody lives on this huge spread of property, and there's even a business there, and the whole family, it's just their place, it's where the whole family lives. And as you drive by, you realize it's kind of a soup bowl. All around it on three sides are glyphosate-rated soy crops. They grow corn, soy, and cotton. One after the other, right behind. And this goes down into a soup bowl. 3 years ago, we were getting our eggs from her. All of our eggs came from her. Free-range chickens, they're happy chickens, they're pecking around, they're eating all their feed off of the ground right there at her house, behind their house, and we're eating the eggs. And 3 years ago, was it 3 years ago? Maybe 2 or 3 years ago, during the summer, I was sick. I would sit down, I would eat breakfast, I would try to get through breakfast, then I would half the time get sick. I dealt with that for about a month, going into the second month. I'm drinking yellow root tea. I'm like, I'm all right as long as I drink the yellow root tea. Well, okay, obviously there's a problem if I'm having to drink, berberine, and that's the only way that I can get through breakfast. Suddenly it occurs to, actually, all of a sudden I start smelling sulfur. I get behind a car and I'm smelling this exhaust. I can't stand it. I can't stand eggs, I can't stand the thought of eggs. I'm like, something's wrong, we've got to quit eating these eggs from her. So I quit eating eggs, which I've eaten 60,000 eggs over the past 25 years, by the way. I counted. That's weird to do. But if eggs give you high cholesterol and kill you with your cardiovascular, I would have been dead long ago, so that's out. But these eggs, I quit eating them, all of a sudden I got better. I'm like, whoa. Then we go and we start buying some other free-range eggs, or eggless best or whatever, and non-organic. Now we do organic, we figured that out. But, and by the way, Ingles, there's a grocery store chain in North Carolina called Ingles that they have their own eggs, and it's their organic that's made. So we started eating our own eggs, I got better. I don't even think about it. So the two were driving by one day, this has been a few months ago, we're driving by our house, and they're out spraying and hosing down the crops. Now, she's just told us about this new health issue that she has, and we're like, oh, they got something else, because we try to help her with everything. And there they are hosing down the fields, and we asked her to say, you guys don't use glyphosate, do you? And she thought we were talking about them at their house. She didn't think about us talking about the people who have all the fields behind their house, the acres and acres and acres of fields. And I said, you guys don't use Roundup, do you? She goes, oh, Dwight uses that on everything. For her husband. On everything. Mouthwash, rinse, whatever. No, on everything around the house. So, and then I'm like, oh no. I'm like, well, what about the fields behind you? She says, oh yeah, they call them Roundup Ready. Nothing but Roundup, glyphosate. Poisoning our friend. We go and get her to have a glyphosate test. They wanted to come back to her with the results. She demanded a glyphosate test. Her people didn't want to do it. LabCorp just didn't scratch their heads. We work now at St. John's Nutrition with what are they called?
Great Plains.
Great Plains Laboratories in Kansas, and they're testing for glyphosate. They're doing blood, they're doing urinalysis management. You can tell if you have glyphosate in your urine, obviously, since we know that 80% of people have it. But what about France? There's 99% of the population that has that. Do you know that every single bottle of wine they tested recently, including organic, had glyphosate in it? Including the organic. So if you're drinking wine, find it. There's a what's the mom website?
Moms Across America.
Moms Across America is a group. They're one of the originals. They actually tie you into resources that allow you to find out who has glyphosate, where there's glyphosate. What is a popular health food store, quote unquote, that happens to be full of glyphosate and has received massive criticism from those in the know about their number of organic foods that have glyphosate? Whole Foods. Whole Foods. Who owns Whole Foods?
Amazon?
Who owns Amazon?
Jeff?
Do you trust him with your health?
No.
So I didn't say anything, but I'm just asking questions. But what I'm saying is we're letting people who are trying to send us to hell guide our actions. Why are we doing that? We're going to Whole Foods grocery to buy organic produce and organic foods that have been proven and tested to have glyphosate. How would an organic crop that's actually certified organic, how could it have glyphosate in it? Well, guess what? After 3 years of your glyphosate-ready corn crop that you got sitting there, after 3 years of that sitting dormant, you could just go and plant you an organic crop, and it's considered organic, and you can call it organic. Only 3 years. It's 3 years unless the state, California's different. Now see, this is one of the reasons that a lot of people don't like this conversation, just like the reason they don't like the T. Gandhi conversation we had in last class, is because people look at this being a political thing. They think this is a leftist point of view, is what they're saying. The Ninth Judicial Circuit Court of Appeals is not a court of people that I would be having dinner and lunch with and hanging out with on the weekends. These people don't value the same things I value, except human health in this case. So just because this seems to be a left-slanted conversation by some people, it's not. The reason that it's a left-slanted conversation is because of misinformation, the disinformation, the lies that Monsanto and other companies have given us. They want us to assume, because, and even on the media, when you hear the media talk about Monsanto, it's either one way or the other. Either it's a weird fringe, hit on glyphosate or Monsanto, or it's they're trying to cover it up and just not say a word about it. So it's very strange. But in France, you're talking about 99% of the, guess what's not legal anymore in France? Glyphosate. Look at obesity and glyphosate. Look at the chart. Tell me that's not something ridiculously correlated. Happy to grow. Now, here we have the use of glyphosate on the corn and soy. And on the lines, we have age-adjusted deaths to obesity. We have obesity on the rise in the exact same ratio as to the use of
I have a
glyphosate.
question. Could you draw the same graphs with a correlation with microplastics or other items?
It's possible that you have to do the graphs, you have to look at the use you'd have to go into the microplastics, which we were using more microplastics now than ever before. So it could be correlative. But look at diabetes and glyphosate. Look at the chart. Look at kidney cancer and glyphosate. Look at sleep disorders and glyphosate. What about sleep apnea? Did Adam and Eve, did Adam come equipped with a CPAP machine? You know, does Eve have to make sure he can know how to operate a CPAP machine, put the mask back on his face when she wakes up, it's hanging halfway off and he's drilling out the mouth? No, Adam didn't come equipped with a CPAP machine because CPAP machines are not anything that humans are supposed to use. Right? Can any expert, can any person who produces CPAP machines tell me different? Are humans supposed to use CPAP machines? No. Why do we have sleep apnea? Where did it come from? Who had sleep apnea 50 years ago? See, we can take one thing after another. We can say, well, what about this? What about that? But when you have so many things that are correlated, and so many questions that are answered, and so many clinicals. Actually, we don't have the clinicals. Why don't we have as many clinicals?
Because they don't want to do that.
Exactly. Well, does Monsanto bribe people? Have they ever been caught bribing people? So, hospital diagnosis of sleep disorders has gone up absolutely at the same rate as glyphosate use in the country. Now, what would cause a person's to not be able to sleep? What their respiratory, the swelling, the inflammation in their throat. Inflammation. Does glyphosate cause increased inflammation? Let's talk about it. What about liver cancer? Look at the chart of liver cancer since 1975. I didn't do it. But look at the correlation. Look at the chart. Look at the facts. Look at thyroid cancer. Now look at thyroid cancer. That chart's ridiculous. You don't think there may be a link to thyroid cancer? Not just thyroid cancer. What about all these weird autoimmune thyroid disorders that we have popping up? Left and right, increasing incrementally, year by year. What about celiac disease? When we hear about early cultures, and we hear about the Mexican cultures and the Aztecs, and we think about their wheat, the consumption of wheat, where did they buy their digestive enzymes?
Standard process.
Standard process. They've been around so long. Their products look so old. That's why they've been around since the beginning of time, because we couldn't eat wheat, obviously, without, pills to help you, with the gluten. We have gluten sensitivities, right? That's the problem with the world, is that it's gluten. Gluten's evil. Gluten's like some evil parasite that goes in your brain, like T. Gandhi. No, that's not what happens. Look at the correlation between celiac disease and glyphosate use on wheat. If you want celiac disease, it's easy. Eat Cheerios. Eat all you can. Anybody ever look down at the UPC code for Cheerios? There's a phrase there that's terrifying. Contains a bioengineered food ingredient. Look for that, because it matters.